A well-known saying that is often used among the ranks of the religious is, "There are no atheists in foxholes." A foxhole, of course, refers to a small pit that is dug on a battlefield to shield a soldier from enemy attackers. The implication of the saying is clear. Sure, you might reject God now while you are safe and sound and have decades of your life ahead of you, but when faced with the very real possibility of imminent death, like fighting as a soldier, everyone ultimately turns to God. But does this saying really ring true? Are there really no atheists in foxholes? Well, the answer is no. Of course there are. Plenty of them. There are non-believers who die every day that don't suddenly turn back to believing in God before they go. It's foolhardy to believe that everyone returns to belief in God when faced with the prospect of their death. However, theists have often tried to manipulate the truth, as they commonly do, to make their own beliefs seem more credible, and there are many cases where Christians have claimed that certain disbelievers had a deathbed conversion, when in reality nothing of the sort happened. In the 19th century, American believers spread the claim that the atheist founding father Thomas Paine recanted his criticisms of organized religion and the Bible on his deathbed, when in reality there is no evidence such a thing took place and Thomas Paine died a blaspheming infidel. Lies were also spread about atheist biologist Charles Darwin after his death, with believers spreading the claim that on his deathbed Darwin regretted spreading his blasphemous theory of evolution. This never happened, and Darwin's daughter Henrietta Litchfield, who was with her father when he died, went to great lengths to stop that rumor from spreading. Even in recent times, after the death of anti-theist author Christopher Hitchens in 2011, believers are once again spreading false claims to support their beliefs. A radical Christian believer named Larry Alex Taunton came out with a book after he died, which claimed Hitchens was teetering on the edge of belief as he lay dying of cancer. This was a lie, and Hitchens' son Alexander Hitchens reported that he spent his time with his father in his final days, and there was never any hint of conversion. Clearly, people do go to their deathbed still blaspheming and disbelieving in God's existence. And if we are going to take the "there are no atheists in foxholes" saying more literally, there are indeed military personnel who have experienced life-or-death situations in war and did not come out of it with a newfound faith in God. At Lake Hypatia, Alabama in 1999, a monument was erected by the Freedom from Religion Foundation commemorating non-believers who have served their country in the military. You don't have to look very long online to find personal accounts of hundreds of ex-military and current military members who have indeed been atheists in foxholes. Go look up militaryatheists.org to see. It's simply untrue that they don't exist. They always have. The Freedom from Religion Foundation includes membership of veterans of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam who put their lives on the line in service to their country, and it's a great insult to those people to make the claim that there are no atheists in foxholes. In fact, a not often talked about phenomenon that was first observed in the Second World War is that some soldiers lose their faith in God on the battlefield because they could no longer accept the idea that a good and just deity would allow such horrible suffering to take place without relief. This happens more often than one might think. But is there perhaps some truth to this saying? Well, yes, some people really do have deathbed conversions. Some people in wartime and other high-stress environments where death is imminent do recant and give themselves up to God, for the hope of an afterlife of eternal bliss after they die. Not everyone does this, but it is true, some people do. And the National Bureau of Economic Research in Cambridge finds that servicemen assigned to combat zones are about 9% more likely to attend regular church services and pray privately than those assigned to non-combat zones. But only a 9% difference isn't exactly anything to write home about. But let's just think about this for a second. What does that prove? Okay, so people who are afraid of death sometimes find faith in God. That seems perfectly natural, but it is not at all evidence for the existence of God. A person who is highly stressed and is trying to come to terms with the possibility of their existence ceasing is not at all in a better place to come to a rational conclusion than a person simply going about their day as normal. It's the opposite, in fact. Even if every single person in a foxhole was converted to faith in God, All that would speak to is the vulnerability of the human psyche, and how in desperate times, human beings turn to something for which there is no solid evidence for existence to deal with emotional trauma. The saying about there being no atheists in foxholes is actually self-defeating for theists, because what it implies is that people don't come to a belief in God through logical reason and study, but instead when they are emotionally vulnerable and desperate. That's a point against religious dogma, not for it. What if we came up with a saying of our own? There are no believers in hellscapes. Referencing the phenomenon I talked about before, about how some believers lose their faith when exposed to the horrors of war because they can't conceive of a God who would allow such horrors to continue, this saying is also utterly self-defeating for atheists, because what it implies is that disbelievers come to the conclusions they do as a response to the emotional trauma they have endured, and not because of rationality. And again, it's not true that everyone who is put in a situation where they might die converts to belief in God. Plenty of people stay true to their convictions and do not allow the emotional and physical turmoil to influence their beliefs. And those people, the atheists in foxholes, deserve the most respect in my opinion, because they have a much stronger will than those who would consign themselves to the belief in a deity for which there is no solid evidence, merely for fear of their own well-being. This has been The Skeptical Skeptic. I left links down in the description below to check out some of those atheists in foxholes I mentioned. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and as always remember, be compassionate, be understanding, but most importantly, never stop questioning. Bye.
In a moment of doubt, isn't there, I don't know, I just find it fascinating that even when you're alone and, no one else is watching, that there might be a moment where you want to hedge your bets.
If that comes, it'll be when I'm very ill. When I'm half demented, either by drugs or by pain, I won't have control over what I say. I mention this in case you ever hear a rumor later on. Because these things happen, and the faithful love to spread these rumors. On his deathbed, he finally, well, I can't say that the entity that by then wouldn't be me wouldn't do such a pathetic thing, but I can tell you that not while I'm lucid, no. I could be quite sure of that.
So if there is some story that on your deathbed...
Don't believe it.
Don't believe it.
Don't credit it, no.